Hey everyone, and welcome. Welcome in to Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, episode number 38. This show is created as a safe space where cancer survivors and cancer supporters come together to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources that provide healing, hope, and resilience. My name is Tim Sohn, a 15-year cancer survivor, host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, and a live streaming producer and coach for nonprofits, businesses, and entrepreneurs who make a positive impact in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let us know where you're tuning in from around the world and what is your connection to cancer. I so appreciate you being here. We want this to be a conversation. Also, we encourage you to connect with each other in the chat. Before I introduce our guest host and guests for tonight, I want to mention a few things. First, next week's show is going to be a little bit different. Next week's Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer show, we are changing the time of the show. And the time of the show is going to be, for the foreseeable future, changed to Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. As well as I'm going to have a new official co-host who is Erica Campbell. You guys may be familiar with Erica Campbell. She has been guest co-host on the show a few times, as well as she's been a guest on the show. We heard her story a few weeks ago, and I'm so excited to have her join me. I also want to say thank you, and I'll say thank you again when Mark Kageyama, who is going to be guest co-hosting tonight with me, I want to say thank you to him, as well as Nancy Barrows, who's been doing a great job guest co-hosting as well. Let's give it up for both of them in the chat. They've been doing an amazing job. And I do want to say, I realize some of you won't be able to make the new time for the show because you work during the day or have other commitments, but the replay is always there. And I encourage you guys to definitely check out the replays and continue to connect with each other on the replay as well. Also, a reminder that the first ever Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer in-person event is coming up on September 10th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time here in Pennsylvania. The registration is still available to sign up. I'll be putting the link again down below in the comments, or you can check out any of my social media profiles. Definitely check that out. There's a 30% off discount right now for a limited time, so definitely check that out. Would love to see you all in person. The idea for the event is very much similar to the show. We'll all be sharing our cancer stories together in person in a safe space. So definitely check out that information at the link, and it would be great to see you there. Also, something I recently announced was that Nancy Barrows is going to be keynote speaker for the in-person event. Which I'm so excited about. She's the one of the people who inspired me to share my cancer story for the first time in June of 2021, when she created her Radiating Real movement. And that's one of the things, and she's one of the people who inspired me to share my cancer story. So those things and many other announcements have come out and will be coming out. So definitely check out my social media profiles, my LinkedIn profile, and the link that I'll be putting in the comments for more information about that. I also just want to briefly say thank you so much to all the sponsors for the in-person event. Thank you to the Pinky Swear Foundation, X Cures, Russ Hedge, Jim Fuse, Veronica Jeans, my parents, Carol and George Stone, and Retress. They're all sponsors of the in-person event. So thank you to all of them. They're all supporting this event, which supports cancer patients, cancer survivors, cancer supporters. And just so thank you to all of you. And now, after all of that, I am going to bring on my incredible guest co-host for the night, Mr. Mark Kageyama. And here he is. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, my friend?
Fantastic. I am so happy and honored to be here. And I'm
I'm
ready for a
happy.
fantastic show.
I'm ready also. Ready and raring. Mark, who is our guest for tonight?
Tonight's guest is a two-time blood cancer survivor,
Wow.
and actually run the Boston Marathon since his diagnosis several times, and he has shared his story in front of 20,000 people at Disney. He's had a stem cell transplant and met his actual donor in person. And this is only part of his story. So let's bring on Boyd Dunleavey to the screen.
Hey guys.
Hello, Boyd.
Hello, Boyd.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tim. And Mark, it's great to see you guys.
Again.
Again, yeah.
Yes, it's great to have you on the show. And Boyd, you were part of the Open Your Hearts and Wallets event. You had a conversation with Jenny Gold then. So just want to say thank you for being part of that event. And thank you for, again, sharing your story with us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us.
You ended up winning the Man of the Year. So hats off to you, sir, for doing that. And being a small part of that, of course, it's just a thrill and a delight for me. So thank you for allowing me to participate in that. And congratulations to you.
I appreciate that. So before we dive into the conversation, I just want to say hello to some of the people who are tuning in. Saima is here. She is saying hello. So thanks for being here, Saima. Saima has a live stream show called Heart to Heart with Saima, I believe it's called. So thanks for being here, Saima. Melody is saying hello from Massachusetts. So thanks for being here, Melody, from Massachusetts. Saima is here from
one quick
Texas.
thing, Tim.
Yeah,
Melody is a brand new grandmother. She had a grandson born this week. So congratulations, Melody.
Yes, congrats, Melody. That's awesome. Tom Tressler is here. The Ohio River. So shout out to the Ohio River. And Tom is part of a nonprofit organization. Tom, remind us the name of the nonprofit organization. It's related to breast cancer work, I believe. So tell us more about that, Tom. Marielle is here. She says, good evening, Mark. Good evening to all. Thanks for being here. Mark is here from New Zealand. Hello to Mark and Boyd. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Mark.
Bob Feathers is here. He says, good evening, friends. Lance McKinnon is here from Pennsylvania. Hey, I'm in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Lance.
Shannon Epps is here. Good afternoon, all. Just stopping by to say hello. Well, hello, Shannon. It's great to see you. Ashok is here. He says, looking forward to meeting everyone. Thank you for being here.
Looks like you might be a Canadian with that Alberta. I think that says Alberta. If I have to throw in a guess.
I believe you're right. I believe he is in Canada.
Of course I'm right. I'm a Canadian. Come on.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
We touched those things. Come on.
Yes. Christine Smith is here. She says the aging enthusiast is grateful for air conditioning here in Oregon. Well, I'm happy for you. And Williams Campos is here. He says good night. Great to see you here. Sylvia is here. She says good night, dear. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Dafina is here. So many of you are here. We appreciate you all being here. And Joe Bullock is here. Welcome, Joe. It's great to see you here. Linda Sherman is here. And Kenny D is here. He says, good evening, Mark, Tim, and Boyd. Kenny, I'm a little worried because you're not saying anything about savoring the flavor. Are you feeling okay? Boyd, Kenny D always, in all of his comments, he says his comments always start out with savor the flavor, blah, 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 blah. So I'm wondering if you're feeling okay, Kenny D.
Oh, I've been corrected by Ashok that he's actually from Ontario. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Canadian part, right, though? Got the Canadian
Thanks
part
for
right.
being here, Ashok. We appreciate it. We appreciate
Yes,
it. Yes, sir. So, Boyd, are you ready to dive into the conversation? Are you ready?
I'm 100% ready, and you guys go, because I don't want to talk the whole time. I have a tendency to do that. I'm trying my best.
I can't believe that, Boyd. But Boyd, you're a 2-time blood cancer survivor. Could you briefly share what was life and work for you before cancer?
So the 30-second version. I grew up in Vancouver, traveled the world when I was younger, met my wife, Denise, in Australia, who's from Ontario. We settled in London, Ontario, which is 2 hours from Toronto. 3 kids in 6 years. I was as a mortgage broker, mortgage specialist. I worked closely with real estate agents and financial planners, basically helping people get a mortgage for a home, maybe rewrite some debt, pay down debt, etc. And so, gosh, that was 2001 all the way to 2011, and then I was in banking. I mean, it was interesting. Side note, I thought that golfing a couple times a week was being active, and enjoyed being a slightly overweight 38-year-old mortgage broker. So I'll pause there.
You were first diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in July of 2011. How did you find out when you were diagnosed, and then what happened, Boyd?
So, a side note, 6 weeks prior to that, I watched the Boston Bruins just absolutely murder my Vancouver Canucks in the Stanley Cup Finals, and joked with my best friend while we were there, the only way I'll ever go back to Boston is to run the marathon. It was like a joke. It's like, I'm going to go run with the Bulls of Spain kind of thing. And so, 3 kids in 6 years, I was really, really tired. And we were planning on doing a family trip to Chicago, actually. And I wasn't feeling well. And on a Tuesday or Wednesday night like this, my wife said, you might want to go to the doctor. Oh, this was an interesting thing. I had gone for acupuncture, right? And anybody that's had acupuncture knows that it relieves pressure. It doesn't cause bleeding. Well, I had it in my legs, and I started bleeding out of my legs. And so that was a telltale sign, along with night sweats, difficulty walking upstairs, random nosebleeds, things like that. And so anyways, this guy from a walking clinic just said he randomly ordered blood work that, thank God my family doctor grabbed it. She literally saved my life, because she's like, look, you need to go to the hospital right now. We think it might be cancer. And so what ended up happening was July. Yeah. So it was around Canada Day of 2011. So admitted to the hospital. I was in the hospital for a month. They fought like crazy just to get it into remission, but I remember sitting there talking to the doctors, and they're like, look, don't tell people you're in remission. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you tell people you're in remission? Well, blood cancer is horrible. It can relapse in a moment. And so don't tell people you're in remission. And they needed to do a DNA marker to see what type of leukemia it was. And so anyways, I don't know why the hospital system just took longer than it should have. And after about 8 weeks, they came back and said it was AML 6-9, so acute myeloid leukemia 6-9. And anybody that wants to do a Google search of that can see the probability of living the year is less than 10%. They said without a life-saving stem cell transplant, you probably won't live the year. And so a search was immediately put in place for a stem cell donor. And my sister wasn't a match. To do a transplant, whether it's related or unrelated, it's like a 1 in a million thing. There's all 10 different markers. It's totally weird. And so our family did sort of a make-a-wish to Disney. And I guess the other thing that was quite fascinating is a friend took me on sort of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Israel. And so those were two kind of big events in the fall of 2011, and came back from that. And sadly, in February of 2012, my cancer relapsed. And the hospital, they told us they had the donor, and the hospital system was overwhelmed, or there wasn't enough beds, or, I mean, it's kind of whatever. What does it matter? Somebody dropped the ball. And so to get acute myeloid leukemia into remission twice in 8 months is a miracle. I'll stop there.
Hey, Boyd, could I just stop you for 1 minute?
Please do.
I'm just curious, when you found out the first time that you were diagnosed with acute leukemia, what was your initial your gut reaction that you had that?
This is nonsense. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. I don't know. I was angry. I mean, do you want to? I can give it like, oh, well, just dug in deep and prayed to God. No, I was like, this is just crap. Our daughter was 3 or 4 months old, and I was like, I'm not gonna die with, a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn. And so there was that. I mean, one other thing that was interesting is I had given blood about 30 times, but I hate needles. So a great way to break a fear of needles, Mark, is just to get blood work twice a day for a year. That just breaks the fear of needles, right? It's kind of like, how do you learn to drive? I'll just get behind the wheel. How do you break a fear of blood work? Well, just, I've had hundreds. I mean, the scars have healed, but at one point I looked like I was just a junkie with all the track marks. So
I think we could actually form a club. So, because I think a lot of us have had a lot of blood tests. Boyd, an important part of your journey has been running in marathons. Why is this, and how is your cancer journey similar to running a marathon?
So a year after my stem cell transplant, a couple things happened. One, we connected with my stem cell donor, and I know we're going to come back to that because that part's pretty stinking cool. But a friend took me to Alaska and ran a marathon for me with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And that was the Mayor's Marathon in June, somewhere around the 22nd of 2013. And I just thought that was the greatest thing. And, to be totally honest with you guys, that was my most favorite marathon because somebody ran it for me, right? So you're there, and it's like, yay, this is great, getting it on video and all that, and taking pictures, and came home from that, and still not sure why, Mark, but I bought a pair of shoes and started running. And a year and a half later was my first marathon at Disney, where, I don't know. I'm gonna give my quote, and it sort of ties in. My favorite Winston Churchill quote is, "Success in life is when you go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm." And so I didn't fail at cancer, but all my goals and dreams, and I'm sure anybody on here that's had cancer can relate to that. Just goes out the window quickly. It's like a bus driving off the edge of a cliff, and all your plans just go out the window. Everything went out the window. And so how does it relate? It's hard. It's difficult. You need determination and desire to push through, and you got to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And to have cancer twice in 8 months, a stem cell transplant, and run 10 marathons, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of parallels that, I was sharing with you guys a little bit yesterday. Nobody really cares in the big scheme of things if you ran a half marathon or a 5K, right? There's no Netflix half marathon or Netflix 5K, right? I don't know what it is. Marathons are this special 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers for anybody that runs in kilometers, and there's something special about it. I really I don't like that distance. I do it because I know my story is inspiring and it saves lives, but from the point of view of what was I comfortable with, I was comfortable being a slightly overweight mortgage broker. I wasn't comfortable getting cancer, and definitely not comfortable running, but we push through, and it's a certain mindset, right? Like I've run for, this is my 9th year running, and I've seen some people just quit, and good on them. If it's not for you, don't keep running. But the determination that I needed to get through cancer gives me the determination to run marathons. And I'm actually an athlete with disabilities. I have a brain injury and spinal cord trauma and all kinds of other ongoing health issues. And so, if that doesn't inspire something, like I don't feel like running. I run because I need to train. And so I don't know. How's that for a long-winded answer?
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Boyd, I just want to go to the comments for a minute, and then I do want to go back so you can talk more about your stem cell transplant, and we can go on from there. Ashok says, Boyd, you have an amazing energy. Attitude can make a huge positive difference in recovery.
I want to comment on that really quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
So not every single positive person that I was with being in the hospital for a year made it, but every single negative person that was negative died. They all died.
Wow.
They're all dead. Every single one of them. If they allowed a family member or a doctor to come in and say, well, I've been around the and next thing you know, you're at their funeral. It shocks me. It shocks me. So anyways.
No, that's a great point, Boyd. I mean, it's interesting, the people that come out on the other end of cancer, I mean, invariably, they're ones with a positive attitude, such as yourself and Tim and other people who come out the other side. That's a critical, very important factor in beating this thing.
Definitely. And Kenny D finally got his savor the flavor comment. He says, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you peeps for sharing your delectable, scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty, good, heartfelt thoughts with us tonight.
you had to ask, Tim.
Yes, I did. And Tim McDonald is here. He said, just wanted to pop in and say hello.
I think I know Tim from my cancer group, so
group,
thank you for saying hi.
Yes. Great to see you here tonight, Tim. Thanks for being here. And just because Senor Payasada is here, Boyd, Senor Payasada, when he makes a comment, they're memorable. He says, my idea of running a marathon is imagining a doctor with a needle chasing me.
Yeah. I like the idea of I only run if a bear is chasing me. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. It just seemed like a good idea. It seemed like a good idea. I don't know what to tell you. You go from here to there and you do amazing things, and you're from blood cancer to the Boston Marathon, and you do epic stuff. And there was a guy in my church named Chris, like 6 years ago. He goes, I would have just done it once. Like that. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but you gotta. Anyways, I ran it 3 years in a row because some idiot said I would never go. So. Oh, and I went back to Boston 5 years after my cancer diagnosis and ran the Boston Marathon, and it was pretty epic. So, anyways, I'll let you host the show, Tim.
Why, thank you. Anyway, this is a great show, though. Anyway, Boyd, let's back up a little bit to. You did receive a stem cell transplant.
This is the best. This is the best part of the whole story.
Yes. Well, we'll find out. Everybody's in suspense. What was that experience like for you? And then you actually met your stem cell donor, and we want to hear more about that. But start out with, the stem cell transplant. What was that experience like?
It was horrific for anybody that's seen the Wolverine Origins from around 2009 or 10, where Hugh Jackman plays his origin story where he becomes Wolverine and takes the adamantium into his body. That sort of describes it. It was just revolting and disgusting. I mean, I had been through 5 rounds of chemotherapy and radiation and thought my life sucked. Throwing up and having diarrhea and your gums bleeding and just everything. Oh, and you got a big port line attached to your neck, and so you're feeding through that, and your mouth is bleeding. And it was a month of absolute nonsense. And on a side note, Mark, you think my Vancouver Canucks getting destroyed by the Bruins in the finals sucked? Well, the following year, as I'm in the hospital fighting for my life, the LA Kings knocked them out in the first round. And I'm watching it on TV. I'm like, okay, I need to find something else to live for other than hockey because my team sucks. And so, anyways, your team went on to win the cup that year. We were talking about this yesterday, Mark being a hockey fan. But yeah, so I guess we both won since I didn't die and your team won the cup. So how about
that? That's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
It's a win-win. And actually, I believe that was the year that LeBron finally won his first championship in Miami. So I had a lot of time to watch TV. I did. I just saw, God bless the person that paid for me to have, like, so think about this. You're having an unrelated transplant in a different city, 2 hours from home. Your wife's got 3 kids. She's driving twice a week. She works all day. She's, and so what do you do during the day? And so, like, this is so 10 years ago, but a crappy little television just here. And so, we paid $200 somebody paid that for me to watch TV. And so watch a lot of sports and television. But anyways, it was horrific. The stem cell transplant worked after about 17 or 20 days, came home from that. Was going to the hospital for back and forth treatments. Was trying to eat spaghetti. My entire face went numb. I got a virus called CMV that caused a spinal cord injury. And during the year of chemotherapy and radiation, we found out afterwards that I'd actually had a brain injury. I mean, you're running along so quickly trying not to die that you don't realize that you suffered a traumatic brain injury. So it just sucked. It just sucked. And then to go from that to being in a scooter, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. So a lot of incompetence. I'll just say this. I got a survey. This is wild, Mark. I didn't even get to share this with you yesterday. So I get a letter in the mail from London Health Sciences Hospital. Hey, how is the service? How is the service? Are you kidding? So I filled in their survey. I'm like, look, I had blood cancer twice in 8 months, a brain injury and a spinal cord injury, and looks like I'm going to be in a wheelchair for, maybe the rest of my life. How was the service? It was horrible. And it was really interesting. A gentleman called who was responsible for the surveys, and I was like, well, that was weird. No, he didn't say that. Sorry. He was like, really sorry to that. I'm like, well, that's nice that you're calling, but that doesn't mean anything. And so a gentleman named Dr. Gibert called, who was the head of the ER, and I could tell he was genuinely contrite and apologetic. And I said, sir, I choose to forgive you, even though I don't even feel like this at all. And interestingly enough, I was on 24 pills a day, and I managed to get off the anti-rejection medication. And so that in itself was a miracle. Other than a traumatic brain injury, spinal cord trauma, and almost losing my vision, it was a perfect success. And so to answer Bob's question, yes, the National Stem Cell Donor List, bethematch.org in the USA, and onematch.ca in the Canada thing. I'm sure we can put it in the notes later, Tim, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, Kara has a question. She says, did you have any GVHD post-transplant?
Well, Carrie, this is the most amazing thing. I guess the fourth miracle. It's really, I can't under stress. I wasn't one of those people that said God's just going to heal me of cancer. I went through every single treatment possible, but there was a lot of people praying. And one of the biggest miracles is that it did not get graft versus host. With the GVHD is graft versus host disease. So graft versus host disease can come in any sort of horrific way. I have a friend who lost an eye. Your skin can shrink. It's just what happens is a grafted marrow. Graft versus host. Right. The grafted marrow attacks the host. It's such a miracle of science itself to do an unrelated stem cell transplant. You're taking somebody else's DNA. You are taking somebody else's stem cells and putting them into your body. Should we talk about who my donor is? You want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. This is the best part. So.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, Mark, I'm not jumping out of my seat here. So we found out a year later that my stem cell donor is an American naval serviceman named Nathan Barnes, who was in Japan when he saved my life. And this is the part that's just really, really cool. So what happened was Nathan had registered himself in the stem cell registry as an 18-year-old when he had first enlisted. And I just found out like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, why did you put yourself in the registry? Well, I guess his commanding officer said, well, you can have the day off. I'm like, so to get the day off 5 years ago, 5 years later, he gets the call. I'm like, this seems like a scene out of the Avengers movie, right? Where the rat walks across the screen and brings Scott Lang out of purgatory and saves the universe. So anyways, so he said he'd do that. And so we knew that he was an unrelated donor. We knew he was a male between the ages of 18 and 35. And they said there's a high probability it might be somebody from Germany, because in Germany, you're automatically enrolled as an 18-year-old where you have to opt out. Whereas in America or Canada, you have to choose to put your name in the registry. And so spring of 2013, we found out it was Nathan, and we're like, yeah, let's meet. And turns out when you're deployed with the US Navy, I mean, God bless him for serving the country. And in proxy, Canada has definitely done well with a strong US military. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll meet. And then this thing in Alaska happened where a friend, it's only a flesh wound, yeah. It's only a brain injury. You threw me off there, sir. A friend takes me to Alaska, and so between the trips to Disney and going to Disney and all this other stuff, I remember my wife saying, look, the Disney Marathon has had spots open up. Why don't you go and run the Disney Marathon? I mean, we went when I was dying of cancer. So January of 2015, I ran my first marathon at Disney. And as I believe Mark had alluded to, I called up the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which was the charity of choice for the event, and said, hey, I'm a blood cancer survivor. What do you think? And I'm thinking like Alaska a year before, in a room with 200 people sharing at a podium. Sure, maybe Tim's been at a room of 200 people, or maybe get the idea. It's like a small, intimate thing. No, this is 20,000 people on stage before the Boston Marathon, or before the Disney Marathon. It was really weird. There's a couple things that happened. The guy that played Rudy was there, so he was there, and this was my tie back. So the race director for the Boston Marathon was there, Dave McGilvery, and he was inviting people to come back to Boston because it was 2 years after the bombing, right? And so people are still sort of nervous about bombs, Boston, whatever.
Of course.
So it's really weird. I mean, I don't know how to say it other than it felt like sort of a Macedonian call where Paul had a vision of a man inviting him to go. Because I said to my best pal, I don't ever want to go back to Boston. but that was the moment. I see him go. I'm like, I spoke on stage and Dave's there, so it must be a sign from God. And so then after that first marathon, it was 8.5 months of waiting. I mean, it takes 9 months to have a baby. It took the Boston Athletic Association about 8.5 months to allow me to run under their Athletes with Disabilities program. But God bless them, they did do that. And I tried every single way but loose to qualify to run Boston. I tried to register with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, the local Boston chapter, that for whatever reason they said no, but whatever. And then I was actually going to guide somebody that had vision loss, and that fell apart. And I mean, it's kind of one of those things. If nothing else works, just applies, with your 5-hour marathon, which generally doesn't qualify for Boston. But based on my health history, I got in. And like I said, there were a lot of amazing people that came with me. I brought 4 Americans with me to Boston that year, and got to meet the coach of the Red Sox, John Farrell, and the Jays were there, the Blue Jays, Canada's baseball team. Or he got a signed ball for my son for the Jays, and it was really kind of cool. And so the story kind of built over time. And I remember meeting people like Bill Rogers, who won the Boston Marathon 4 times. And he's like, "Boyd, you have an amazing story." And so my wife's like, "You should go back." And so I went for 3 straight years to Boston. Chicago. Well, of course I had to go back to Chicago, Mark, because that was a city that inadvertently saved my life. I almost died. And so I ran the Chicago Marathon in 2017. And my favorite marathon of all time was the New York Marathon, which was in 2018. Oh, and I did Disney twice. And so 7 marathons in 7 years. And it was time to meet my donor. It's time to meet my donor. I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's like, when am I going to meet Nathan? When am I going to meet Nathan? As you can tell, I lived my life because I wasn't going to sit there waiting for this guy, because he'd been deployed overseas. He was in Japan, San Diego. I believe at some point in his life he had been in Afghanistan. I don't know that for sure, so please don't call me, but he's deployed overseas. And so anyways, you got to live your life. And so doing all this stuff, but I was friends with him on Facebook forever. And like, people, it was interesting. People were sending me these inspirational videos of people meeting their donor, right? Like you meet your donor at a restaurant, or you meet your donor, right? Whether you had a kidney transplant or something. And so I'm like, okay, we gotta go big with this. And so I called up the guys that run Disney. I'm like, look, as you know, I'm a blood cancer survivor. And I was quite vocal with my story, which wasn't a problem, but I said, why don't we have Nathan meet me at Disney and do the whole thing. And so we timed it so that it was during the Wine and Dine half marathon weekend. And so we met at Disney. So is this the point where we're going to play the video, or what do you want to do? There we go. Okay, I'll stop talking.
That sounds good.
This is epic. This is Boyd Dunleavey in Ontario, Canada. The video was made last fall. It was me meeting my stem cell donor, Nathan Barnes, for the first time. We waited 7 years to meet him, as he is an active Navy serviceman in the U.S. Navy. We want to thank Disney for helping make this possible, and let you know that we're thinking of you. All the best from Ontario and Canada. I honestly don't think I would have ever run a half marathon if it wasn't for Disney. I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Without a life-saving stem cell transplant, I wouldn't live the year. It was completely out of the blue. When we found out that it was a gentleman named Nathan, our middle son's name is Nathan, and it means gift of God.
You have to wait a year before you can contact each other, but since about 2013, I've been waiting to meet him.
He's never been to Disney, so I said, we are going to Disney. We are coming to Disney. We're going to do this here.
Finally. I had no idea you could actually feel this good about something.
I can't believe how Disney sort of gets to you every time you're running here. It really is the most magical place in the world.
Knowing his story, knowing our story together, it's amazing what he's come from.
This is by far my favorite race.
Great job, Jim.
My motto is to never lose hope. Never lose hope. Never lose hope. Go Disney. They do media very well.
That was awesome.
I know, right?
Absolutely awesome. Yes.
I know. It feels sort of out of body. So sorry for. Well, no. Why am I apologizing? I'm not going to apologize for being excited about that moment.
No, not at all.
No. What am I doing? I've been back in Canada too long. Be an American. Don't apologize. No, I didn't say that. I didn't.
I mean, what was going on in your mind, in your heart at that moment that you actually got to meet him?
Well, part of it was, I mean, you know, whenever you're training for a race, you're always running the risk of an injury. And I had actually tweaked my foot in the fall. And so part of it was like, oh gosh, like, thank you, Melody. It was one thing to meet, right? And, again, you meet and you hug and it's great. But then like 2 days later, I got to run a stinking half marathon and have him give me the medal at the finish line. And so, I sort of wasn't really that well trained. And that being said, like, do you think I was gonna mess that up? So no, like as we're meeting, my whole thing is I'm thinking towards the race. And then during the race, I'm thinking and whatever. And then it kind of all just boom landed right there at the end. There was a lot of emotion and there was a lot of tears from a lot of people. Because I mean, Disney does it really well, and it was just really interesting. And I guess a side note was we were able to just reconnect 3 weeks ago, and so part of that was not planned. I'm sure people are tired of hearing about COVID. So I'm not going to mention that anymore. But like we went to Disney 8 times in 9 years and then couldn't go for 2 years. And so we were going to reconnect and Nathan and I were going to do friend dude stuff. And then Nathan got married. And so then it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And so while we were at Disney, we were just there at the end of June into July. For a few weeks, we spent 3 days with Nathan and his wife Kim and their little girls, and it was an absolute blast. And that's where I discovered, like, hey, a couple weeks ago, 10 years into this journey, that his number one motivation for signing up to save my life was just to get a day off work. I mean, talk about an unmotivated 18-year-old. But I think it's fair to say neither of us could have imagined where this went. Neither of us could have imagined where this has gone. And I don't know where you want this to go, but one of the biggest compliments I got was from Dr. Irwin Walker, who was my hematologist who helped with the stem cell transplant. And he's been doing this for 40 years. And he said I was one of the first people he's ever met to have, at least in Canada, have had a life-saving stem cell transplant and then become a marathon runner. And so that means a lot more to me. It means as much to me as the man that saved my life. It means as much to me that guy actually saved my life, to then say you've not just done this, but you've done that. And so things like that. And so, I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people. But obviously Nathan is, he's my Captain America. He's my Steve Rogers, and he's definitely my hero. It's a total tearjerker, isn't it? It creates an emotional response, that video. And it was definitely a made for Disney moment. So
that was so awesome. Just truly
right.
Awesome. And
right.
In relationship to that, I want to go back to what we were talking about yesterday in our pre-call. Please talk about your thoughts on your relationship with the cancer community and the people that you've met. How have they influenced your life?
So I've seen people do some absolutely incredible things. And, it's kind of like, I mean, most people on this call are cancer patients, right? Or survivors. when you make friends with other cancer patients, you're around cancer patients. And so, as Steve Rogers said in the one Captain America movie, they're like, Cap, what are you doing this weekend? He's about to jump out of a plane. And he's like, I don't know, because all the guys in my barbershop quartet are dead. And it resonated with me that year, because it's like, man, a lot of people that I was friends with died. And so there's this raw emotion and there's this pain that happens when you have friends that are cancer patients, but there's also a beauty in it. I want to share the story of my friend Nancy, who's from Vancouver. I happened to be in Vancouver in 2016, seeing family, and I found the news with blood cancer. She needed a stem cell transplant. So I jumped on the phone and called the local station and said, look, this is my story. I've had a transplant. I'm running the Boston Marathon. And so they reran the article. And so I had spoken at my uncle's church that Sunday, and somebody it was just a small little church in North Vancouver. Somebody in the community or in the congregation knew Nancy's ex-husband through the RCMP. And so I connected with Nancy, and I guess unofficially, that was the first year that I ran Boston, and Nancy had a life-saving stem cell transplant in April of 2016. We found out afterwards, I ran Boston in April 2016. Her stem cell transplant was from a gentleman from Boston. Oh, here's an interesting thing. Nancy was part Indonesian and part Caucasian, so to get her a donor was like borderline impossible. And this young guy was a Vietnamese American. So I don't know how that works, but it was a beautiful story. And I got to meet her in 2019 in Vancouver at the end of the Vancouver Half Marathon, and that was one of the highlights for me. And just I'm like, oh, Nancy's waiting to meet me, so I ran my fastest half marathon ever, and was able to use that as my qualifying time for the Disney Half Marathon. And Disney will do an inspiring story, but they don't give a crap about that. If your time is slow, you start at the back of the race. Well, if you notice, I started at the front of the race, right? Like a champ, I was at the front of the race, right? And so that's because 6 months prior to that, I had met Nancy in Vancouver and was able to use a pretty fast half marathon time to whatever. And, you know, one of the most bizarre kind of weird movies is Silver Linings Playbook. And, you know, they're all screwed up, but they're family. And so, you know, I was thinking about it today. We're all kind of messed up and cracked and broken, but we're family. And we, you know, I don't know. It's kind of, this is our community. I've been a runner for 9 years now. I've met some great people. Other people don't relate to me, and it doesn't really matter. The cancer people are my community. The most interesting thing about how I reconnected with the cancer community was, you know, I'm sure you can appreciate it, when a lot of your friends die, you just want to shut down. And so for a number of years, I just didn't want to interact with people. It was just too painful. And in the middle of COVID a year ago, my wife said, do you want to sell our house and move to the Maritimes? And so we were one of about 5,000 to 10,000 people that said, yay. And we got out of Ontario and moved to Moncton, New Brunswick, which is east of Maine. And so we're Maritimers, and we live on the East Coast, and we're an hour ahead. And so in the middle of doing that, I started running marathons again. And I thought to myself, hey, I remember meeting a guy at CancerCon, or not CancerCon, at the Disney Marathon in 2015, and talked about CancerCon all those years ago. And I'm like, I wonder if there's still a CancerCon. And I went online and I found this group called Grit Health that was doing a live cancer thing. And turns out that the cancer community is alive and well. And from that, imagine me sharing my story in 5 minutes. That was really rushed. And so went from that to another group called the Man Up to Cancer Howling Pack group. And a gentleman named Joe Bullock introduced me to that. And from there I met him. And so it's given me tremendous courage and encouragement to meet a lot of people, but it's kind of one of those things. I didn't want to meet people. Like I said to Mark yesterday, I would have rather met you at like an Amway convention than or something like that. Than like crying out loud. It's like, this is not a community that you want more people part of. But I actually had dedicated this year's Boston Marathon in April to people in the cancer community, which was like awesome and gay and impacted 10,000 lives, an amazing moment. And then like one person's mom died, another guy's cancer relapsed, and another person had 4 people had a cancer relapse. I'm like, oh gosh. So it's a reminder that these are my peeps, and you guys are my peeps. And so when you do epic things, you still it doesn't make you immune from suffering terrible sadness and grief at the same time. So how's that for a complicated answer?
Well, that certainly resonates with me. I mean, when you're diagnosed with cancer, it's something that can affect you so much and the people around you. I think it's certainly been my perspective that it certainly creates a special bond with other people that are other cancer patients or survivors or supporters in some way. That's been my perspective. Has that been your perspective as well, Mark?
Absolutely. I mean, I, in my opinion, I think the cancer community is just so incredibly special. I mean, there are people who have faced their mortality for the most part and have accepted it and want to move forward and live their lives. And so I really, really appreciate that, and I embrace it. And it's I am so honored to be a part of this community with such great people. So absolutely, Tim.
There's a line from the Mungo Jerry song, "In the summertime." So, anyways, this line at the end of the song is "Life's for living, and that's our philosophy." And I'm like, that's it. You got to live your life, right? Like, you're given another chance to live life, or whatever chance you've got. You got to live it.
Absolutely,
100%.
and my hat's off to you, Boyd, for living it and for running marathons and for embracing life and taking on new challenges and moving outside the box, and doing something different. I mean, you started running your marathons after you were diagnosed with cancer. That's incredible.
I shared today on Facebook my one of my most favorite summers was the summer of 2010, and it's because we had seen some special things happen. Family from out of town had a miracle baby, and we had our family. My wife was pregnant, and it just brought up a lot of happy memories. And it was a beautiful thing. But there's beauty in brokenness, and I don't really. I'm very public in sharing my story, but I'm also a private person, and I don't like. It's kind of interesting. Like when we moved here to New Brunswick, we didn't know anybody, so I didn't share it with everybody. And New Brunswick is a bilingual province, so there's people in our running group that are French. They don't speak English, and I'm kind of cool with that. I like being kind of able to share when I want to share and not have to share all the time. Hey, there's Jenny. If that totally makes sense, right? We love you, Jenny. We're thinking of you.
Hi, Jenny.
So does that make sense? Like, I don't always want to be, oh, there he is again, right? And, one of the things that helped so much was my wife's like, look, you got to step up, right? Like, Mr. Boston Marathon runner, that's great, but the lawn still needs to be cut. The laundry needs to be folded. So, she loves me. And so it's out of a love that you got to do better. And it's out of love that you got to whatever. And so.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think like when I started sharing my cancer story and now doing this show, right? A lot of people know me because of cancer, right? And that's not the only thing I want people to know me because I have cancer, right? Like there's so many more dimensions of Tim Sohn than Tim Sohn, the cancer guy, right?
Exactly.
Does that resonate with you, Boyd?
It's really bizarre. There's tremendous pride in wearing a Boston Marathon shirt or having the medal.
Yeah.
And I got some really good advice from our pastors 7 or 8 years ago, which was stop explaining yourself to people. And so, people, how are you medically disabled and you run? I don't know. My brain doesn't operate in the same way that it does. And apparently, motor function where your body moves is different skills and different whatever than doing complicated banking mortgage transactions. And so, you know, I don't know. I mean, I love going to Disney. You know, and do I need to apologize for that? No, we went, and it was just really, really cool. I mean, it's cool to be able to take your kids and to go on the roller coaster or to meet one of the characters and to do whatever. But you know, I'm very thankful too that I don't have some big scar on my face, right? And you know, gosh, it's hard talking about it. A young lady that I met about 7 years ago named Emily, sadly, she passed away this spring. But she had a form of, I'm going to say it wrong, I think it's sarcoma, but it was a type of cancer that she had lost. Her arm was all mangled, and it was very difficult for her. And, you know, she was 15 years younger than me, and she died this year. And it's like, but there's a certain, I don't know how to articulate it. I don't know how to articulate it. Like, I've met people that have lost limbs. People always know that you've lost a limb. You can't work your way around that. You can't sort of blend into the crowd with that. And we were kind of joking yesterday, Mark and Tim, about when I go to Disney, I just wear a Mickey Mouse shirt, right? I don't volunteer that I'm a Canadian because most of the whatever. I just blend right in, right? I'm a Caucasian-looking individual. People think I might be from Idaho. I have a neutral sort of tone. I don't talk too Canadian. Maybe I watched enough American television as a child. I don't know. I don't mind blending in is all I'm trying to say. I don't mind just blending into the crowd, believe it or not. I mean, my wife doesn't believe that because of these bizarre moments where like I'm speaking on stage before 20,000 people or another moment was in 2016 when John Farrell asked to meet me, who was the coach of the Red Sox. The Blue Jays happened to be there, right? And Buck Martinez was talking about me on television. And so people back in Canada were texting like, oh my gosh, like Buck Martinez is cancer is part of you. It isn't you. That's correct. Buck Martinez is talking about you on television. I'm like, wow, this is like bizarre. And these sort of moments, actually, I want to share a really, really cool story. I know we're sort of over time-ish, but guys, this was really neat. So
okay, last story, I know Tim is reeling it in.
It's going to be a good one. I can sense.
There's been 1,000 of these stories, but this is a great one. So I was hanging out with Nathan and his wife Kim and their girls, and I had Nathan with me, and I'd spend the day with my family at Epcot, and so it was literally one of my most favorite days. But we're getting off a boat, and these people say, "Excuse me, would you take our picture?" And sometimes I just know that I need to share. And it was a group of 10 people, this family from New Jersey. And I said, I'd love to take your picture. And I'm like, can I tell you a good news story? As I'm taking their picture, I'm like, this gentleman's my stem cell donor and he's my hero. He saved my life. And they just, oh my gosh, the tears started. Everybody's in tears. Well, what I didn't know was this family was from New Jersey. They were there to remember their dad that had died of leukemia.
Wow.
And because of COVID, they weren't able to bring him there. And so he died. And so this family had been planning this trip for 2 freaking years. And they crossed paths with Boyd asking would I take a picture. Wow. And so took their picture. We got some pictures. I don't know. They found me on Instagram. I don't know. But whatever. But anyways, all that to say, life is beautiful. And, you know, my motto that I shared with the Disney thing is to not lose hope. So I guess that's what I would share with those in the cancer community, because you never know, right? People listen to the doctors and, oh, the doctor said this and you're going to die. I'm like, well, what if you don't die? What if you don't die?
Right.
So
exactly.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Boyd. Thank you so much. And I want to show some of these comments. Yes. Ashok says, your cancer is a part of you. It isn't you. Mic drop. Ellen says, my sister said the same thing. She doesn't want cancer to become her main identity. Yes. Thank you all for showing up tonight for Boyd and each other. I really appreciate you all. Mark, any parting words for Boyd before I gently whipped him off the screen and we wrap up the show?
No, thank you so much, Boyd, for I I I love that video. I saw a couple other videos that you had, and so to see the actual performance videos, that was phenomenal. So thank you. Thank you. And you
And
could
generally, I thank Disney for doing that. They didn't have to do that. So thank
yeah,
you.
that was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Boyd. We really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, Boyd.
Mark, what do you think?
That was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And I am so thankful and honored to have been your co-host, your guest co-host, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I thoroughly enjoyed the whole experience. And yeah, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to be on this rock. Period. In fact, I look back in the last year, and Boyd mentioned about the people that we're associated with in this community. And one of the things that I'll be real quick. One of the things I am so thankful for is the people that were put in front of me and around me when I was after I got diagnosed. I'm so thankful for. But I I have a friend of mine who is a nutritionist, and he was really strong with me. And he basically, when I was at my weakest point, he said, he asked me if I wanted to live, and I said absolutely. And so he said, you're going to have to completely change your diet. He says, if you don't, I don't think you'll be here. Well, I did, and I'm here. And I called him up this week, and I thanked him for being strong, for being forceful with me, because that was at a time when I was confused, I was weak, and I didn't know what to do. But because he was strong, I just said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm so thankful that I did. So with that, I am truly honored to have been here. I enjoy doing this so much. I appreciate it. And also congratulations to Nancy Barrows for being the keynote speaker at the live event, and for also thank you, Nancy, for being a guest, keeping the seat warm, being a guest co-host. I really appreciate that. And so thank you so much, Tim. It's been phenomenal.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for showing up. Thank you to Mark Angstar for connecting us.
Thank you, Mark.
Who is here often. And yeah, just thank you for everything, Mark, and for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. And I don't know, tonight I'm kind of emotional about everything. So shout out to Puffs. I've got the Puffs ready. Tonight I kind of consider like a transition moment of the show. As you guys know, Carol Ulker and I created this show together in November of 2021. And a number of months ago, she left the show. And then I was doing the show alone for a while. And then I decided I needed another co-host. And so Mark and Nancy have been so kind to fill in for a while. And it's been a wonderful experience co-hosting with both of you guys. And next week, the show will be transitioning to 3:00 Eastern time on Tuesdays. And Erica Campbell will be the new official co-host. And I'm just so grateful for the whole experience so far. So many of you who show up every week. Tom Tressler put this beautiful comment here. He put, Boyd, Tim, Mark, and all of you on here, never having had cancer, I'm humbled by all of your courage, strength, and ability to embrace life. What I learned from hearing these stories allows me to develop some level of empathy for the journey you're on. Thank you, Tom. That's beautiful.
Tom.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you, Mark. Looking forward to you continuing to show up in the comments, and you have an open invitation to come back to guest co-host anytime, for sure. And thank you all. If any of you would like to be a guest, we're always looking for guests on the show. Thank you, Pamela Brinker, who says, grateful for you, Tim. Mark, too. I see your comment. I appreciate it. Katie says, amen. God bless, tough love, unconditional love. Thank you for sharing, Mark.
Thank you, Katie.
Jenny Gold says, love you, Tim, Mark, and Boyd. We love you too, Jenny Gold.
So happy to see Jenny here.
That's me too.
Great. Yes,
definitely.
Yeah.
So if any of you would like to share your story on the show, definitely get in touch with me. And Mark, who is the guest on next week's show, which is at 3:00 Eastern time?
Our guest next week is Chris Killian. Chris is the mom of Lauren Killian, who is a brain cancer survivor. So let's all show up next week and show support for Chris and each other. And thank you for all the people who showed up and made comments. I saw so many people, so many friends and people that I love and people that I embrace. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. And thanks again to you, Mark. And thank you for everyone for tuning in to another episode of Showing Up, Perspectives on Cancer. One more time, a reminder, the show is at 3 p.m. Eastern time next week. You can find it on my LinkedIn channel and all the other places on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Another reminder, co-host will be Erica Campbell. We are going to go out the same way that we come in every week. Mark, are you getting ready to dance? I feel like you're.
I love that song. That song is great.
I even feel like Boyd is gonna dance. I feel like he's gonna.
Oh, he will.
Do you think he's gonna dance? I think
yes,
he is.
I believe he will.
Here we go. I see him dancing. Here we go.